What does this indictment in a US court really mean for the Adani Group? What is the likely impact on Gautam Adani and the conglomerate he runs? Adani stocks bled up to 20% today. What happens next? Watch this report.
The Adani Group has been plunged into crisis for the second time in as many years. The indictment of the US Department of Justice and a civil case by the US Securities and Exchange Commission has pushed one of India's richest man into the corner again. The impact on the Adani Group is multi-pronged. The most direct impact is on the stocks of the group. The news led to a plunge in all the 10 Adani Group stocks, with Adani Enterprises, Adani Energy and Adani Green falling the most. The group lost nearly 16% of its market cap to 12 lakh crore rupees, with investors left poorer by 2.28 lakh crore rupees. The indictment by the US authorities has also hit fundraising plans of the group. Adani Green Energy was in the final stages of closing off a $600 million fundraise in the US through a 20-year bond on Wednesday. The issue was cancelled following the US court order. The group had to similarly withdraw a 20,000 crore rupee public issue after Hindenberg allegations. Future fundraising efforts in the global market will also be hit, as top banks and investors are likely to take cue from US authorities and avoid exposure to the group. And it's not just in the US that the Adani Group may face difficulties. Regulatory benchmarks set by the American regulator are closely followed by several countries, which could make fundraising difficult across the globe. Gautam Adani's mega plans to invest $10 billion in the US and creating up to 15,000 jobs after Donald Trump's win could also shift into the slow lane, if not face a total block. Ratings agency Moody's has said the indictment is credit negative for the Adani Group. The agency said it focuses on the company's governance practices and their ability to access capital to meet their liquidity requirements. The fiasco has resulted in the group's dollar-dominated bonds taking a huge hit. The controversy around the Adani Group is also likely to cast a pall around other Indian companies tapping the global bond market for funds in the short term due to risk aversion. Indian stock markets regulator SEBI may also have to step in after having given the group a clean chit on allegations made earlier by Hindenberg Research. This as SEBI has a regulatory agreement with its US counterpart and may have to intervene with its own probe if the SEC invokes the Inter-Regulatory Cooperation Pact. A legal fallout of the case could lead to temporary travel restrictions for those named in the US Department of Justice indictment. According to Reuters, court documents show that arrest warrants have been issued against Gautam Adani and Sagar Adani. According to analysts, the Adani Group could resolve the charges via an out-of-court settlement, which would involve paying fines, admitting certain wrongdoing, and improving compliance practices. Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
Meanwhile, a big political firestorm has erupted over the bribe charges against Gautam Adani. Congress MP and leader of the opposition in the Lok Sabha, Rahul Gandhi, has come out all guns blazing at the Modi government. Rahul Gandhi has demanded that Gautam Adani be arrested. BJP says it is the opposition rule states that are named in the Adani bribery indictment and that Rahul Gandhi is creating fear amongst investors.
The indictment of billionaire Gautam Adani in a New York court over his role in an alleged multi-million-dollar bribery and fraud scheme has sparked a firestorm in India. The Adani Group released a statement denying the charges, but it had no effect on the political slugfest that had already begun. Congress MP and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi lashed out at the government, accusing Prime Minister Narendra Modi of protecting Adani.
अदानी जी को एकदम अरेस्ट किया जाए और हम जानते हैं और हम देश को दिखाना चाहते हैं कि अदानी जी की अरेस्ट नहीं होगी, और इसलिए नहीं होगी क्योंकि हिंदुस्तान के प्रधानमंत्री अदानी जी के पीछे खड़े हुए हैं और उनके प्रोटेक्टर हैं।
The Congress leader claimed a fair investigation will expose Prime Minister Modi.
अदानी जी को अरेस्ट कीजिए, उनका इंटेरोगेशन कीजिए, और फिर जो भी इसमें इन्वॉल्व है पकड़िए, और एंड में मैं आपको बता रहा हूं नरेंद्र मोदी जी का नाम निकलेगा, क्योंकि बीजेपी की पूरी फंडिंग, पूरा फंडिंग स्ट्रक्चर इस व्यक्ति के हाथ में है। इसीलिए प्रधानमंत्री चाहे भी कुछ नहीं कर सकते।
The BJP hit back at the Congress. It claimed that the alleged bribes occurred between July 2021 and February 2022 in opposition-ruled states.
4 राज्य में SDC स्टेट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी, वो स्टेट की ही प्रॉपर्टी होती है, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की। कांग्रेस पार्टी की भूपेश बघेल जी की सरकार छत्तीसगढ़ में उस समय मौजूद थी। उस समय आंध्र प्रदेश में, जहां सबसे ज्यादा लेन देन के विषय में चर्चा हुई, YSRCP की सरकार थी, क्योंकि तमिलनाडु का नाम भी इसमें आता है। उनके स्टेट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनी का नाम आता है। किसकी सरकार थी? DMK, आपके सहयोगी स्टालिन जी की सरकार थी। उस समय उड़ीसा में किसकी सरकार थी? BJD की सरकार थी।
Countering Rahul's attack on Prime Minister Modi, the BJP said the Gandhis have failed to dent Modi's credibility.
राहुल जी कह रहे थे इंडिया हाईजैक हो गया है। गलत, टेंस गलत है। पास्ट टेंस में होना चाहिए था, फ्यूचर टेंस और प्रेजेंट टेंस में नहीं। इंडिया हाईजैक हो गया था। गांधी परिवार, ये नकली गांधी परिवार उसके हाईजैकर थे। कमांडो ने मुक्त कराया है हाईजैकिंग से।
Ever since the Hindenburg, a US-based short seller leveled allegations of irregularities by the Adani Group, the Congress leadership has been gunning for the conglomerate over his links with the BJP government. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what's likely to happen next in the US courts, in Parliament, and on the commercial prospects of the Adani Group, which will now find it tougher to raise funds till these charges are alive? To talk about this, I'm joined on the broadcast by Amit Malviya, National Information and Technology Department Head of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Squaring off against him is Amitabh Dubey, who's in charge of research and monitoring for the Congress Party. I've got Sushil Kedia, founder and CEO at Kedianomics, and I've got Business Today's editor Siddharth Zarabi. Siddharth, just explain to our viewers what's most likely to happen next. The Adani counters were down to the lower circuit in the beginning. Some of them recovered. Parliament fireworks are pretty predictable, but as far as the impact on business is concerned, today they had to call off a bond offer that they had for $600 million. How does business get impacted because of these charges?
Well, very clearly the biggest impact, Rahul, without doubt, is a funding challenge. The Adani Group has said that it will contest this legally, but funding, whether it's a stock issuance, whether it is bond raising, the cost of capital, accessing the US markets, which are the largest financial markets in the world, huge challenge there. Second, just a week before this indictment was unsealed and have shocked markets all over the world, Gautam Adani had tweeted and said that they have a $10 billion investment plan for the US, including on renewable energy and infrastructure. Given the circumstances, given the way this very powerful SEC works and the US criminal justice system, even travel to the United States will become an issue. There's a big question mark there. So I would say that plan is now run into serious obstacles. Third, on a global basis, there will be risk aversion within investors. Let me give you an example of GQG Partners, US-based company. Rajiv Jain became famous all over the world for a 10 billion contrarian bet on Adani.
And it paid off for him.
20% stake across various Adani Group companies. That stock has been massacred in Australia. It was down 23% when trade was open. Now look at the pressure that investors in that fund will create. So risk aversion across the global financial community, and Adani had both a massive appetite for growth growth which was being fueled by a combination of equity and debt. And look at the debt numbers. Between Hindenburg and now, debt levels have actually gone up. But the markets were comfortable because the group, after the Hindenburg hit, had demonstrated and done various things to kind of, win back investor.
Is this more serious than Hindenburg in your view?
Of course, without doubt, because Hindenburg was a short seller. You could obviously raise
and those were allegations. This is an indictment.
This is an indictment. The US SEC, the most powerful market regulatory enforcement agency across the world. And of course, I must say that the SEC doesn't win every case, just like India's SEBI doesn't win every case. But it is an indictment. The criminal justice system is involved. They have allegations which on the face of it seem very damning, electronic evidence. They claim to have documents, and they have directly indicted the chairperson of a group along with so many other people.
Now, Amit Malviya, you saw Rahul Gandhi in that press conference being extremely aggressive, asking for the arrest of Gautam Adani. The parliament session of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha starts Monday. Now, the opposition, particularly the Congress, will gun for the BJP, saying that if these charges are being tried in a court in the United States, why aren't they being investigated here? Because the alleged bribe giver is here, the bribe takers are here. So how is the BJP intending to respond to the political fire that's coming against your government as a result of these charges in a US court?
Rahul, I think it's important to understand that the charges that have been pressed in a US court are to be defended by the Adani Group and not by any political party. But it seems like Rahul Gandhi is quite inclined to base his entire politics on targeting an Indian conglomerate and entrepreneurs in general. But having said that, it's not the first time that Rahul Gandhi has invoked Adani. He has been doing this for some time. We've seen him do this with Rafale and other contracts that India entered into. In fact, India's government entered into, and in each of these cases, he's fallen flat. As far as the Adani Group is concerned, I want to first bring down this entire narrative that Rahul Gandhi wants to build around Adani and this government. How did Adani become this big a conglomerate today? And let me quote to you a public statement that Gautam Adani made. He said, "Many will be surprised to know that it all began during the tenure of Rajiv Gandhi as Prime Minister, when he first liberalized the export policy, and for the first time, several items were brought in the open group license list. That is what helped me to start my export house. But for Rajiv Gandhi, my journey as an entrepreneur would have never taken off." So, Rajiv Gandhi, father of Rahul Gandhi, is the one who actually brought business into existence as far as the Adani Group is concerned. Then we have the Mundra port, one of the biggest properties that the Adani Group holds. Do you know when he got this land? It was in 1993 when Chimanbhai Patel led Congress government was in power, and they gave the land at 10 paisa per square meter for Adani. In those days, it was a complete throwaway. Not just this, the 10-year that UPA was in power, the compounded annual growth rate of the loans that the Adani Group got from public sector banks grew at 74%. This when the average banking credit was going at just 20%.
No, so Mr. Malviya, you're talking about the past. I want to draw you to the present. The question at this moment is, what does your party and government intend to do with the charges that have been leveled now? Will there be an investigation in India to prove whether officials from the Adani Group paid off officials in multiple states to ensure that they got contracts from power distribution companies which they weren't getting otherwise? That's the charge. Will you probe it?
Absolutely. The 4 states that are named are Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and there is Tamil Nadu. Odisha, at that time, a BJD government was in power. Tamil Nadu, DMK and Congress alliance. Andhra Pradesh, it was YSRCP, and Chhattisgarh, it was
And there was
Congress.
Jammu and Kashmir. You
So
miss out
Bhupesh
Jammu and
Baghel,
Kashmir. The
amongst
other
others,
state that's
have to
named,
answer this
which you
question.
missed out, is Jammu and Kashmir, which was under central rule, which falls under your purview, sir. You
No,
left that
I haven't missed out, Rahul. It was a union territory at that point in time, and Satyapal Malik was the governor. And as you know, Satyapal Malik's tenure in the office is under CBI investigation. So I was coming to it before you pointed that out. But it's a union territory and not a state.
No, so who will probe?
Having
You're saying you're
said
willing
that,
for a probe, so
the
who will
question
probe
remains
this?
That yes, so I'm coming to that. I read through the indictment statement. It is very vague in saying that there was an offer to pay, and in some places it has been interchangeably used as paid. So unless there is this fund transfer or bribe that is given, the investigation will hit a dead end. And I just noted that the Tamil Nadu power minister as well as Bhupesh Baghel have issued a statement that nothing like this happened. But having said that, it's a serious issue. It requires investigation. It will have to be investigated at those respective states. Except Odisha, in other states, we are still not in power. Chhattisgarh, of course, Bhupesh Baghel is out and we have government there. So we look into this matter. The tenure of those respective chief ministers will have to be investigated, and we will do what is appropriate.
Okay. Amitabh Dubey, respond to Amit Malviya. Point number one, he's willing for an investigation, says if there is money that's been paid, it's to the Odisha government potentially run by the BJD, the Tamil Nadu government run by the DMK, the Jammu and Kashmir government run at that time by Satyapal Malik, with whom this government has massive problems. So essentially making the point that let there be a probe and let the guilty be found. The government has nothing to do with the Adani Group, and if there is a crime that's been committed, let the guilty pay.
So if there in any other government, Congress, BJP or any other party, previous to Mr. Modi, if some serious charges like this had been made about a close confidant of the Prime Minister, the government would have fallen. There would have been an uproar. But in Mr. Modi's India, the investigative agencies, SEBI, ED, CBI, income tax, that are supposed to investigate white-collar crime are instead protecting it and covering it up. We have seen what has happened to investigations over the last few years. Repeatedly, they were carried out and then they were squashed mysteriously, they disappeared, including the SEBI's investigation. And now we have a sense of why, because of revelations against Madhvi Butch. In fact, these agencies have been used, contrary to this, to enrich Mr. Adani, to push assets into his hands, to break opposition parties, undermine democracy. So the question remains about whether these claims, these promises of an investigation are credible. But that said, I welcome Mr. Malviya's statement that they will be investigated, and we hope that there will be serious investigations, because until now we've been in this very strange position where allegations, as he said, have been made against a number of governments, including oppositional governments, plus J&K, as you mentioned. And I want to mention Rajasthan and Maharashtra have made similar contracts at very high prices that mirror the contracts that these investigations have talked about.
No, but you do
So
also accept that this
opposition
is
has
just
been
a
saying,
charge
"Please
at this
investigate."
moment, charge for which
No, no.
they think
So-
they have prima facie evidence, which ultimately needs to be proven in a court of law. Even the indictment
Absolutely.
says you are innocent till proven guilty, and some of these may actually not come out to be, executionable
my
in a
point
court of
is-
law.
My point is that until Mr. Malviya's very important statement, it's the opposition that has been saying, investigate these, look into it, these are serious charges. And the BJP, who normally doesn't lose an opportunity to go after the opposition, mysteriously have become very reticent about investigating these serious charges.
Okay, Mr.
Even
Malviya,
though, please
who you
remember,
said that there will
Mr.
be an
Modi
investigation,
himself-
but which agency?
Mr.
Will it be
Modi
the
himself
CBI? Will it be
said-
the Enforcement Directorate? In that Bitcoin scam when those audio clips came out, an ED investigation was ordered. So which of your agencies is going to investigate this case, sir?
Yeah, I'd love some clarification, because Mr. Modi himself has accused
Look, Rahul,
the
I'm
Adani
Okay,
sure
Group
let,
of
let
will
Mr.
remember
Malviya
during
speak.
the
Mr.
election.
Dubey, I come back to you in a moment. Let Amit Malviya speak.
If there is, Rahul, as you know, ED comes in if there is prima facie FIR that is filed by any of the agencies, and the FIR can be filed if there is a complaint or if there is a court case. Whatever is the situation in this particular case, it will go through the course. If there's indeed bribe that has been paid, the chief minister's tenure during that period will be under scanner. In this case, Bhupesh Baghel, Naveen Patnaik, the DMK, the chief minister is in office still, and that is also the case with Andhra Pradesh. although it is for the respective state governments to initiate these inquiries, and I'm sure it will be done in right earnest. But having said that, the point that I'm making is, and I heard the rhetoric of the Congress spokesperson, and he keeps talking about close confidant of Prime Minister Modi, and I pointed out to you that it was under the Congress regime, and particularly Rajiv Gandhi, that the Adani Group flourished. Not just that, and I would not go that much in the past. Look at the 10 years of UPA. The first investment that the Adani Group made in Australia was in 2009 when Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. It was in 2010 that the deal with Sheikh Hasina was signed for the power project in Bangladesh. In 2011, they made an investment in Queensland about Point Coal Terminal. In the same duration, they invested $1.6 billion in Indonesia, South Province. Now, are you telling me that all these investments that the Adani made were at the behest of the Congress? And will Rahul Gandhi answer how the corporate group flourished during the Congress regime? Or is it his argument that in the Congress, the companies were growing in spite of their presence in office?
Okay.
And now with the new regime at helm, things have changed drastically.
Okay, Sushil Kedia at Kedianomics, what impact does this have on the Adani counters tomorrow in the immediate, in the public markets, and then on the ability to raise funds internationally, which are crucial for the kind of growth appetite and the capex outlays that the Adani Group has made, and for something as simple as the ability of Gautam Adani and Sagar Adani to travel internationally?
So see, every time Adani has tried going raising capital, last year or so, trouble has hit them. So there is more to these things than can meet the eye easily. So of course, in the midst of such a troubling atmosphere, to think of raising capital will neither be their priority. They have to first fight this fire, nor will it be easy. So that addresses part one of your question. Part two is, until this, see, the stocks are all oversold. So if we ask both the questions, how risky is it to go and buy these stocks, or how risky is it to go and short sell these stocks? I would say risk is equal in both cases. So it's a wild gamble out there rather than a assuring trading idea of going short here at these levels. Things can vitriolically change on either side. See, this is not a conviction. This is just an indictment. Anybody can file a case against anyone, and any judge can find, okay, prima facie, a case.
It's like a charge sheet. In the Indian context, it's like a charge sheet, which means there's been some investigation. Prima facie, they think they have evidence. It's not a final conviction, but like a charge sheet, they now think they have some evidence against.
No, a charge sheet.
Okay.
Rahul, a charge sheet would be still much more aggressive. This is just an admission of a case. And if Rahul Gandhi is going around town saying, isko arrest kar lo, he's like one of the top leading businessmen of this country, is not chota mota pickpocket.
Sure.
Even Rahul Gandhi has been out on bail, and is, nobody is pushing in this country, go and arrest him. Let's be a little more civic. Let's give everything a fair chance. And let me ask a counter question.
Misleading us.
What if Mr. Adani says that my business is so huge, my time is so costly?
Mr. Dubey, let him speak. Sushil Kedia, completely
what is Mr. Adani
Mr. Dubey, I'm coming back to you in just a moment. Amitabh, I'm coming back to you in a moment. Let Sushil complete.
What if Mr. Adani simply says, for this small amount of money compared to my large empire, I am going to do a consent filing, neither accepting nor denying these charges. All of these politicians from all of these political parties will be on the mat. Those who are right now dancing, trying to all the time nail down the central government, right? Everybody else has also been accused of bribery. So, let's be responsible.
Can he do that, Siddharth? Just say, okay, let's pay these charges and clear it out. Would that be the end of the case?
Well, that is one of the fundamental differences that is available under US law. There are instances where plea bargains have been entered in other corporate cases where there are similar allegations or different allegations. I don't know actually what will happen in this case. We'll have to wait for the company to respond. It has said that it will legally fight it out, but there is a difference in the provisions for such cases between what we understand as common law in India and in the United States.
But Sushil Kedia, we also saw the president of Kenya announce that the airport project and the power project in Kenya would be cancelled, and the Adani Group has arguably India's most aggressive international plans in countries like Israel with the Haifa port, with Saudi Arabia, or even with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, the United States, Europe. They have very, very aggressive plans. Now, the ability to raise capital internationally and B, the ability to win some of these international projects, do you think that could be impacted?
See, if I were to sum this up in one line, the entire career of Adani he's been constantly put to tests and trials, indictments, whether in a court or in markets or in business, but he's not yet been convicted once. So, this fight will go on. I don't think, the reactions seen today are sensible. It's an overreaction as usual.
Amitabh Dubey, I've heard from senior officials alleged George Soros conspiracy, the fact that Parliament opens tends to happen just before Parliament session opens. So this idea that there is some kind of a deep state that is propping these charges up, that Adani is the one Indian company that's going internationally, wanting to push India's mission, India's message internationally, which is why there are operators who don't like the way the group is expanding and want to trip it over at this stage, which is why the Kenyan project got cancelled, which is why other international projects may come under fire as well.
First, I want to correct what Mr. Kedia said, saying that this is less than a charge sheet. This is the result of a 2-year investigation, and a grand jury has sat and passed these charges. So this is a very serious process. These are very serious charges of bribery of Indian officials, of violation of Indian laws, including SEBI laws, and I hope SEBI investigates. So this is typical of the BJP and Adani supporters to wave the flag. The fact is that the people who are damaging India's image are the people who are doing crony capitalism, are the people who are jacking up electricity prices using coal over-invoicing, or whether it is through the bribery that has been alleged to get solar power projects at a very high cost, that is directly affecting Indian consumers. So what is hurting Indian consumers and Indian savers is the actions alleged of the Adani Group, not of what people have alleged heard sources that are conveniently being used to blame to cover up who is really the guilty party.
No, but you didn't answer my question. I mean, doesn't the timing look a bit suspicious to you, coming as it does just 2 working days before Parliament starts? It happened the last time as well. Also, last time they had a follow-on public offer, an FPO, which got marred. This time round, they had a $600 million bond offer, which again had to be scuppered. Again, I don't know, but the timing seems highly suspicious.
So the timing of the Hindenburg report was obviously intentional because that was a short seller. So that was obviously linked to the market. In this case, it was a 2-year investigation. The 24th of October is when the finding was made, when the order was given. This was a couple of weeks ago. Now, who decides when to release this is not something I can comment on. But you can always find some or the other connection with one of these things and come up with a political story to justify it. And that's missing the main point, which is very serious charges against an Indian businessman that deserve investigation.
Amit Malviya, are you concerned that the winter session could be a washout? I mean, seeing Rahul Gandhi's positioning in that press conference, this is the one issue they'll take up, and I know the likes of Sharad Pawar and several in the opposition don't agree fully with him, but the man's determined to go for the jugular.
Rahul, before I answer your question, let me just point out a few things. In February 2023, George Soros made a public statement targeting Adani and Prime Minister Modi and said that our fortunes are intertwined. It is exactly the time when the Adani Group was coming up with the 20,000 crore FPO. And as you pointed out yourself, they were in the midst of a $600 million bond offering in the United States, and this ruling has come. This statement has come almost a month after the indictment report was published on 24th October. So clearly a lot is left to interpretation as far as the timing is concerned. But I have a more broader question to ask. At a time when in America there is a transition process that is on, and just 24 hours ago we saw President-elect Donald Trump put out a tweet in no uncertain terms saying that the outgoing regime is looking to stack up the Department of Justice, or is misusing the Department of Justice for their own ulterior motives. We've had Elon Musk, who's seen as Donald Trump's right-hand man, name 5 attorneys which he said were appointed by George Soros. And we've also seen the kind of proximity George Soros has had with the Congress and the Gandhi family in particular. Obviously, the old man is not happy with the fact that India is doing well, Indian corporates are going places, and we have Rahul Gandhi fronting the assault on India Inc., on our entrepreneurs, every time George Soros wants to benefit from the market. So I'm not going to comment on another country's political affairs, but for Rahul Gandhi to wade into the political divide in a foreign country and use a report which is not even a final statement of sorts, and to make statements that, go ahead and act and this is collusion, is, I think, highly irresponsible.
Okay.
But it is quite obvious that he's
so
acting
Siddharth,
at
there are
the
7
behest of
stages
George
of
Soros,
investigation. This is the 5th stage.
Yes.
Okay, this is the 5th stage. Explain to our viewers stage number 6 and stage number 7. What happens next?
Clearly, and this applies generally as a rule, the possibility of a plea bargain for civil issues. And there is also some unverified news so far which seems to suggest that somebody is cooperating with the authorities in this case. Now,
which is how they're getting the information,
which is
a whistleblower of sorts.
Whistleblower of sorts. Is it competition? Because we have to also remember there is another entity called Azure, which is a US listed company, majority 50% plus stake from a Canadian fund. So there seem to be some dynamics.
But there are charges against Azure as well.
Absolutely, and we should therefore keep the focus on this company, although Azure also operates in the Indian renewable energy space.
So the same contracts that the solar
and the
energy
indictment
corporation
alleges
puts
that
out,
there was some sort of collusion between...
They compete for those contracts.
And the indictment also alleges that there is some sort of collusion, but we don't know the reality. So all of that will pan out, but the next major step will be what kind of legal response is sort of unveiled by the Adani Group.
Also for viewers to understand, I want Sushil to come in on this, raising funds internationally is significant to be able to finance the kind of aggressive capital expenditure plans that the Adani Group has. And if your cost of raising funds goes up, then your ability to be competitive in auctions comes down, because you're raising funds at a more expensive rate, and therefore your cost of executing that project itself goes up. And being competitive is very important, not just in the Indian context, but particularly internationally. So in that, Amitabh Dubey, Hindenburg was just a charge. Here, with the SEC being involved, with the US courts being involved, do you see this as being far more grievous and far more serious than the Hindenburg allegations?
Of course, no. I want to reiterate, these are very serious charges made of violation of Indian law. It is not a violation of only of US law to go around bribing Indian officials for profit. It is obviously a violation of Indian law.
But it's also a violation of US law. It's also a violation of US law, because you signed disclosures saying you haven't bribed officials.
Yeah.
They signed those disclosures.
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm saying is our concern should not be US law. Our concern, that is their problem. Our concern is the facts that Indian law is obviously being violated, and there's a whole track record of the Adani Group violating Indian law, which we have chronicled.
Okay, so Sushil Kedia, are you concerned about the prospect that there is some, because ultimately somebody made this complaint, which is how the US SEC got involved, which is how the charges got framed, that there could be some insider or somebody who's in the competition who has information and is trying to use that to build this case against the Adani Group?
Sure, Rahul. See, almost all of the time, big business is fiercely competitive, and time and again, repeatedly, when their issuances are around and these things happen, so such a suspicion will always be there. But Rahul, quickly allow me to ask one question to Mr. Dubey. All the belligerence, jingoism, ecstasy that Congress party or other opposition leaders are displaying through the day. Let me ask you a question with Rahul's permission. आप कह रहे हो कि बस यूएस में इंडाइटमेंट हो गया तो अडानी को हैंग कर दो, मोदी गवर्नमेंट को हैंग कर दो. आप पहले सबसे पहले जाके अपने चीफ मिनिस्टर को हैंग करो. चैरिटी बिगिंस एट होम. सेट अप एन एग्जांपल. जस्ट बिकॉज यूएस में इंडाइटमेंट हो गया, ब्राइबरी का एलिगेशन आया, हम अपने एक्स चीफ मिनिस्टर को हैंग कर देते हैं. आप भी करो अडानी को. पहले कुछ करके दिखाओ और उसका एग्जांपल दो. जस्ट डोंट क्रिएट.
Let Amitabh Dubey respond to that, Amitabh.
Overreactions, because everything has an economic impact.
We believe in due process. And if
आप बघेल जी को फांसी पे चढ़ा दो पहले. पहले मिस्टर बघेल को फांसी पे चढ़ाओ और उसके बाद बोलो कि
Let Amitabh speak. Mr. Kedia, let Amitabh
Kedia,
speak.
you seem very disturbed by these allegations. It's not against you. Please relax. The point is that any allegations have to be examined by due process.
This tongue-in-cheek remarks doesn't make you win the debate.
Let him
Focus on the
speak.
point.
Mr. Kedia, let him speak, please. Amitabh Dubey, go on. Make your point. Fade it out.
Right? Any investigation, we're in a strange position where the opposition is saying investigate allegations that may be against the opposition, and the government is saying nahi, hopefully they will investigate, and hopefully in parliament they will tell us exactly what they plan to do. But we believe in this investigation. The point that Mr. Rahul Gandhi was making is that you threw Mr. Hemant Soren in jail for a 31 crore allegation, the Delhi Chief Minister for a 100 crore allegation, and here we have a 2,000 crore allegation, and there is nothing that is happening and we suspect will not happen. So this is a very serious matter, and it has to be done through due process, and the right people have to be found, because as I said, these are illegalities in India. Never mind what's happened in the US. These are crimes being done in India.
Siddharth, you've been speaking to officials in the government. What are they saying? How does the BJP government see this play out?
There are two elements that I want to bring out. One, that there is a memorandum between the US SEC and India's SEBI. If required, SEBI will have to sort of cooperate for this probe. That's number one.
Compulsorily.
That is the memorandum. You could always walk out of anything, but that is the situation. The other is the aspect of the ambit of Indian law under the US system. And I'll quote, the US attorney says, "My office is committed to rooting out corruption in the international marketplace and protecting investors, no matter where in the world it occurs." So that's how they are approaching it. US SEC also has very broad-based purview because the international financial system is linked. And just one more point on the first issue that we were discussing, the impact on financing, which seems to be the most immediate and will likely prevail in the short term. I think there cannot be a debate on that. Moody's has said that this development is a credit negative for the group. So the larger question of one, fighting the legal battle, but broadly the restoring perception around corporate governance. And one final point, Rahul, this is not one entity. Hindenburg had, thrown various sort of allegations. It is the Indian central government entity. There are 5 state governments, including 1 union territory, and of course, a very, very large conglomerate which has massive size and scale. So obviously the impact is going to be broad-based.
Well, this has come right before Parliament begins. So no matter what happens on Super Saturday, there will be fireworks galore in Parliament on Sunday. Amit Malviya has his hand up. Sir, I'm out of time, so I want to give you a very quick 30-second window to make your concluding argument. Amit Malviya.
Very quickly. We spend so much of time discussing a US court observation, if you like it. Just 3 days ago, on 18th November, the Competition Commission in India has fined the Meta Group for $25.4 million. I don't think there is any kind of stress in American media. It's probably footnote. Nobody in the Indian media also took note. So it's probably high time that Rahul Gandhi realizes
that wasn't a bribery charge. That's misuse of dominant position.
Fight their own battles, and to drag them into politics is pretty bad seen as far as India Inc. is concerned.
Sure, I think that's a point that's being made, that these charges are leveled, companies deal with these charges, and that Indian courts and Indian bodies have found American companies guilty as well. There will be a lot more about this in the week to come. Once the results dust settles, this will be top and square of the opposition's agenda for sure, and it will be interesting to see how the government responds to this. We'll track all the aspects of this story very carefully. To all my guests for joining us, thank you very much.